Hello, everyone, and welcome to the sort of first episode of D&Debates. This is a podcast where the four of us good pals get way too opinionated and passionate about some fantasy nerd game. It's a fantasy nerd game we all know and love, though, Dungeons & Dragons. I guess let's start with some introductions. I'm Amanda, pronouns are she, her, and I'm your moderator for today. With me are the other lovely D&Debaters, and I think I'll let y'all go ahead and introduce yourselves.
I'm Scott, he, his.
I'm Corey, also he, his.
I'm Jake, thirdly, he, his.
Love that. So I think in the beginning still, I should probably explain how this will work. We have 3 rounds where each debater will have a short amount of time to give their opening statement, and afterwards it'll just devolve into rebuttals, arguing, and just a healthy dose of chaos. The first 2 questions my debaters know ahead of time. The third is a fun one, though, to keep them on their toes and to spice things up. All the questions relate to our episode theme, which, because it's pretty much the first episode, is themes beginning the campaign. And I think if we're all ready to hop right into it, I will get right to the first question. So, begin the campaign. It's time to start your first session, and let's say, it's classic D&D, high fantasy, sword and sorcery sort of setting. What's the best place to start your players in? And we're assuming level and party with any range of player experience, kind of like set those boundaries. I'm gonna put my timer, and let's start.
This is stressful.
Oh yeah, episode 0 was a little long, so we're gonna try timing this.
I can't remake the whole ranger class level by level, Amanda.
Unfortunately, we gotta scope it down a little bit.
I can't design an entire campaign to talk about how it should start.
All right. Anyone want to volunteer to begin?
Moderator chooses.
All right, let's go. Oh,
Let's roll a d6.
First one.
that's smart. Where's my nice sparkly purple and pink dice? Okay.
Wait, we didn't assign any.
I mentally assigned them. I mentally assigned them. Don't worry.
Good DM.
Scott,
good DM.
You're going first. All right, whenever you're ready.
All right. The only reasons taverns are maligned are because of player awkwardness. The trouble of sitting back and being expected to role play immediately. In order to get around this problem, the thing that you need to do is start your players in a situation. I do not recommend a combat situation, but definitely in medias res, get them right in there. My personal favorite recommendation is take an experienced player that you have and start the campaign off with a prophetic dream for a classic sword and sorcery campaign. If you have a character that's kind of playing a sneak thief and a liar, have them have a vision of 2 snakes coming out of their mouth like a tongue and then wrapping around their neck, and then they after that, they can wake up in the middle of a situation that is more pressing and more physical, get something that's prophetic, ties to the campaign, and makes everybody snap to attention and think, all right, awesome, this is the kind of campaign we're in. I am hooked into the story. Additionally, by starting someone in a situation, you give them an opportunity to respond, thus soliciting role play in a natural way rather than expecting them to initiate. Players don't know what the tone of the campaign is, whether to be jokey, whether to take it seriously until you as the DM set the tone. This gives you the opportunity to set the tone of the adventure.
All right. I mean, technically still have 10 seconds left, but I think that's... Okay. That's pretty solid. Okay, start situations a little vague, but I think with identity, you go with a dream, I think, especially. So maybe say that. Interesting. What a interesting...
Like any situation will work, but the prophetic dream is not.
All right, prophetic dream. Interesting. That's a good one. I think... very interesting. Let's see. Already set my timer. Who's gonna go next?
I can go next.
It goes down to the dice, Corey.
Roll the die, Corey. You're going next anyways.
That's right. Amanda didn't fudge that.
I didn't.
Dice are on my side, baby.
The dice gods have decided. Dice gods have
I should
decided.
roll my bean dice next time. I didn't roll my bean dice. I should.
Those will never be on my side.
I
Anyway,
love my bean dice. Dice with actual beans in them. All
They're the
right,
dice from
Corey.
hell. Just kidding. They're great dice,
No,
Amanda.
they're
They're
great
amazing dice. They're amazing.
Yes,
I love them.
$30.
You
Or
made a great choice in making
you better
them.
have the most perfect campaign start. Okay. Well, I'll start the timer whenever you're ready.
So the best way to start any campaign is what I like to call vignettes, crossroads, and disaster strikes. Now, in this campaign start, you have each character, or maybe a couple groups of characters, starting off in different parts of the setting in which they will be able to converge with one climactic inciting incident, right? We see this all the time. We see it in multiple sources of media, whether it's movies, the first movie of any Star Wars trilogy, Guardians of the Galaxy, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. We also see it in live plays all the time with Dimension 20 does this. I know Campaign 2 of Critical Role did this. It's just a great opportunity to introduce each character naturally. Sometimes in the very first session, it's awkward. It feels like an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting where everyone's just kind of standing up, introducing themselves. But in this way, a player can give just a quick physical description of their character. But more importantly, each player will get the opportunity to showcase their character through the lens of their actions and their behavior in, isolated situations, interacting with NPCs. It also gives you multiple sources of world building. Having more than a single beginning setting makes the campaign world feel lived in and played in before the party even becomes the party. There's just something so satisfying about the party coming together at the table after we know all of the characters. And it also gives the opportunity of surprise, letting your players wonder and become excited and beg the question of how they are going to form together. It's just very great, natural, and fun. It fits pretty much any campaign setting, really, especially when the characters aren't super, connected to begin with. There can be a way for the DM to sort of create that inciting incident that will bring the characters together, but also starting off in these, isolated parts of the beginning session will make it just feel very, very natural. It's super satisfying, and you just can't beat it.
All right, with 4 seconds, yeah. Interesting. Vignettes, crossroads, and disaster strikes.
I like it.
You lost me at bean dice from hell, but you kind of picked it up from there. So
that was all in good fun. All in good fun.
I wish I had bean dice. They're really, really, really good.
They are fantastic. First roll them, nat 20. It's a sign. I don't care if they're unbalanced because they're made with real beans. It doesn't matter.
I know what you're talking about. I've been there.
Jake, Jake, your mind is still just as acute as it always is. What are you talking about?
For listeners at home, for context, and couldn't be tell by Jake's accent, Jake is in England, and it is currently very late, 3:30 a.m.
3:26 a.m. So if my arguments sound more like nonsensical philosophical garbage, it's because it is.
But that's the fun part. We're not here to actually discuss real things. It's a fantasy nerd game. All right, Jake, let's hear. What do you think? Where are you going to start your campaign?
Well, in a general sense, I think it needs to start in a place that illustrates your world the best. So it depends on your campaign, but I think a great place to do this is in a tavern. Now, I know people say, oh, taverns corny, should never do it. But the thing with a tavern is it gives you the opportunities to show the players the world, really, that they're going to be playing in. So perhaps they go in, they hear a rumor, oh, the king has been assassinated. Maybe they want to investigate that. Oh, there's a bandit camp nearby. Oh, that looks fun. But you need to make sure that you describe it, you paint them a picture so they know exactly where they're at, so they can imagine their characters in that situation. And I mean, that would definitely help them describe their characters to each other and interact with each other. And you should just you don't just throw them in there. You should try and also bring action to them. So perhaps a man runs in shouting, oh, goblin attack, they've been kidnapped. The party are gonna look into that. So I think the tavern is where they start, and that's where they'll first be introduced to the action. Yeah.
You got some more time, but I think.
Oh,
that's
how
our-
much time? How much time? How much time?
Yeah, like 40 seconds.
40 seconds. I have. So I guess I'll just add. A tavern actually. Maybe you're in an apocalypse. If you start a tavern, it could be like a symbol of how you're living in an apocalyptic world. If you see this tavern that is destroyed, so tavern doesn't have to just follow this one stereotype. It can be used in many different ways.
All right. So some interesting opening arguments we have here. Very good, and I think I like it. So we got the tavern, we have vignettes, crossroads, and disaster strikes, and then we have the prophetic dream. I'm gonna reset a timer, give you guys a couple minutes. I mean, I think they're all great, but tell me why yours is better than the rest.
Okay, I'll throw an idea. Oh, I beat Scott. Anyway, I think what I did is also great in the right campaign. But firstly, with Scott, prophetic dream, that is really cool. But I think that only works in. I mean, it could work in any campaign, but I think it's most effective in certain campaigns, and it's really giving it's only connecting one player to the world, really, the person who experiences the dream, and the other players kind of won't really know what's going on. I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I'm just saying that's kind of my interpretation. And then I guess Corey's was also really cool.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, it was cool, and I mean, I kind of did that similar in my campaign. I'm not gonna argue that. But I think also you want all the players jumping into the campaign at the same point could help them all have the same kind of understanding of where the world is at that point, and then they can start experiencing the world together almost. That's what I have to say about that.
Here is my thing, because while I was listening to Corey's, I was thinking to myself, oh shit, that's so much better. I'd rather play a campaign where that happened. But here is the thing. I play with a bunch of really experienced, really good D&D players who are bound to be patient, and most of the DMs I have are really great DMs who can handle that properly. It takes an extraordinary degree of pacing from the DM, and it takes patience and understanding and an ability to individually improvise from each individual player in order to make sure that it happens right. If you have one dud, it kind of fails the momentum of the thing moving forward. I would love to play that campaign where it happens perfectly, but we're assuming a wide range of player experience, and some players just aren't yet going to have the chops, and some DMs aren't yet going to have the chops to pull that off.
True, I did say assume any range of experience. That's a good.
Scott, I get that, but I will say I used this exact opening in the campaign I ran over the summer, and it was 4 players. All of them had never played D&D before. I did this same thing. One character was in a tavern. One was, at their house in this town. One was just entering the town, and the other one was at like the town hall. Granted, these, beginner players might be kind of new to role playing and stuff, but I feel like when there's an interaction between a single player and the DM, it kind of cuts out that awkward tension of like, oh, all of these other people are looking at me in this situation and maybe judging me with, this introduction. Whereas the DM has already hopefully talked to the player about their character, what choices they want to make, where they're going to start. And it allows for, I feel like, an ease of any player character into the story of the campaign instead of just kind of throwing them in there with everyone else and being like, hey, figure this out together. I mean, of course it is important for the party to form, but I feel like naturally is almost easier for players of any experience. I mean, of course there are going to be players that might not be as comfortable with it, but I feel like with the right DM who can, make any role player comfortable in a almost like small scene of a one-on-one role-playing interaction, I feel like it's a really good idea.
I would trust any DM here with that. I would trust most DMs that I've worked with, but I have worked with some DMs that really struggle with pacing, and pacing is the predominant thing of that. And if you are somebody who struggles with pacing and you start with that beginning, or if you have a DM that starts with that beginning, you are going to see the flaws of the campaign right away, because there won't be, you have to hit the right interval of time just right, and it's really a practiced, it's really a practice. Like, some DMs have natural skill for it, and I'd love to play that campaign. I don't think it's for every DM, and I don't think it's for every party.
You know what start does not suffer from this issue? A start in a tavern. I mean, I've already talked about it. But I think why a tavern is so good is, I guess I'll go to what Jason already said, is that what is a better representation of a sword and sorcery world than a tavern? I mean, it's the first thing you think about when you think fantasy. And the player, especially for new players, they find themselves in a tavern, they're going to start painting a picture in their mind as well. They know what a tavern looks like. They know what it is in the fantasy setting. So if you put them in this situation, you describe the uniqueness of your own tavern, you explain to people, they're going to start imagining a picture. And once they start imagining the picture of this tavern, they'll start imagining their character in that image. And so then, I mean, and doing it at the very beginning is important, because that means throughout the whole campaign, they're now going to have like an idea of what their character looks like, how they act in a social situation, and their relationships with the PCs, for this is where they will meet their PCs through whatever circumstance the DM decides.
Taverns are great. I've started campaigns in taverns. I've had campaigns that started in taverns. I am a big fan of openings that show what the campaign will be like and what the world will be like. The trouble with individualizing a tavern is because everybody has, like you said, those ideas pre-made of what a fantasy tavern is, that without like significant changes and significant individualization, which you can do, but at that point, why not just start in another location? There are other hubs of information out in the world. There are marketplaces. There are court fair theaters. There are that kind of thing.
I'm not saying it has to be a tavern. Just a tavern is just I think a good example of kind of.
You did say tavern.
Okay, fine. I'll stick with tavern.
You can't back out now. I'm sorry.
Fine, I'll stick with tavern. I started with a tavern in my campaign, and you guys went there. It looked like a normal tavern. The guy you talked to was just there to get information from you, and then you were attacked by demons. And I think that painted a great picture of what the campaign would be like: deceit, demons, can't trust anyone, basically evil stuff. I think tavern just gives you a great template to do whatever you want with it as well.
All right, I'm gonna get started. Any last final words, statements, closing statements, nails in coffins?
I didn't start the campaign there. I came in later, so it doesn't apply.
Fair enough.
Scott, Corey, any last? Sorry, Scott, you said that. Sorry, Jake, Corey, any last?
I think I've explored the facets of a tavern.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I took some interest. Very interesting starts. I love that debate or the discussion of that. Very interesting indeed. 3 different approaches. I shall reveal. I have a score in my mind. I shall reveal it at the end. But very interesting. Moving on now. So, started the campaign, whether it be in a tavern, through a prophetic dream, turned into an active situation where the players have just met up after different vignettes of this one setting incident. Settled in, and we're now ready to roll initiative. Let's say for this classic, level 1 4-person party, what's like give me the best starting encounter, the best first encounter. And because we're talking classic D&D beginnings and openings, I'm only letting you guys choose enemies from the basic rules, so things you can find for free from like D&D Beyond or Roll20. So it's like a limited monster manual. I think let's go. We started with Scott, and then we went into Corey and then Jake. So let's start with Corey this time. My timer ready to go. You have 2 minutes. You don't have to use a whole 2 minutes if you're just explaining your encounter. But whenever you're ready, I will start the clock.
Okay, picture this. In the course of the first session, the party has all, conglomerated. They have all gathered in this large town square where the Duke of this town is making a statement regarding some political thing, maybe some social thing, some intrigue in the world of the campaign. And from the crowd, a cult fanatic charges the Duke and making an assassination attempt on his life. And there would be a roll initiative immediately. Now, there's also a scout taking people out from atop a building, whoever tries to interfere or tries to assassinate the Duke as well. This will allow the party to focus their efforts to all sorts of parts of this encounter, whether it's the Duke being assassinated, whether it's the people in a panic in the crowd, or whether it's the scout taking people off from the roof. It offers a dynamic way for the characters, or for the player characters, to all take care of different, sources of conflict. It brings the party together. It's a simple enough encounter for players to conquer while being difficult enough to pose a threat to an important NPC, likely down a player or two. We all know, action economy and the inherently flawed system of CR kind of makes itself okay. It's not a CR1, but, when it's ever going to be fair if it is. A good first encounter furthers the inciting nature of the beginning of a story, poses a difficult yet winnable battle, and allows for good role play rather than a mindless bash 'em up murder hobo wet dream. This encounter embodies that idea.
Ooh, I love the. Sorry, was it about the murder hobo wet dream?
There's story to it. There's story to it. There's stakes. It's not just, hey, you see this thing, attack it, then move on to the next. It furthers the story, and that's what a good encounter should do, especially the very first one.
All right, yeah, that's about your time too. Interesting. So at its core, you got cult fanatic and scout. All right, I'm interesting. That's really good. I like the sort of visual, the cinematic approach you took to it. I think it's very off to a strong start. All right, done some things. I'm a note taker, so I also forget things so quickly. So if you don't take notes, probably whoever goes last will win, and that's all I can remember. So give me 1 second.
Anyone else just find a monster that would be cool?
Because I think that's a good class to start. I also think things like, yes, it's like the 2 wolves, or like 2 swarms of rats and a giant rat. So those classic dumbass level 1 encounters, but they're fun because
Yeah,
they're fun.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
nearly killed a level 1 party with like 2 wolves. They're pack tactics, man.
I nearly killed a party with the Mound of Bones.
I wanted those books in the library. Also, we were not level 1. We were like level, I want to say 3.
Which makes it worse.
What? Like, just, I know CR is stupid, but what CR is a pile of bones?
I messed with it, but I think they were like 3.
Okay. Interesting.
Or maybe they were 8. I don't really know. There were 2 versions. I kind of lost track of which one I was using.
There was also the kerfuffle with the pudding earlier on.
Oh, black pudding.
All right, we'll get into some level 4
Okay.
encounters later. We're gonna have some more level 1 starting encounters.
Could throw a black pudding at level 1 party. Don't do it. That's not my answer.
Do not throw a black pudding. Oh my god. Okay, Jake. I mean, if you're talking so much about your fun monsters, let's move on to you. What is your starting encounter?
Well, much like the tavern, I think the first encounter is a good way to give your players an idea of what the campaign will be about. And that's just general point. So I use demons and devils in my demon-focused world. But I think for this, I'm going to argue zombies. Hear me out. So you're in a tavern, of course. I mean, where else would you start? And you heard a rumor about some creepy happenings in the tavern basement. And the barman's like, oh yeah, there's some creepy dude down there or something. So you go down there, and I'm just going to cut to the chase. You find like a cultist and a necromancer, and it's like zombie. And so roll initiative. Now, why I think zombies are really cool. This isn't just going to be a hack and slash.
because zombies, I've lost the page, but zombies have what's it called, undead fortitude. So whenever you knock them unconscious, they can make a con save where the DC is 5 plus the damage dealt. This is going to be a big problem for first level players, so it encourages problem solving instead of ha ha whack whack, because that probably won't work. They might need to think about magic, or radiant damage would do the trick. And then you also have the necromancer, low level necromancer, of course, casting low level spells that will deal problems for first level party. So I think you have more than one different enemy for variety, so the players can tactically think, do we take out the necromancer or the zombie? And also the zombie itself has interesting mechanics that make it immune almost to just hack and slash. They kind of need to figure out how to best solve it. So, and definitely you don't want it too challenging or they'll just get scared. You don't want it to be too easy or they'll think every encounter will be a breeze. So you want it something in the middle because it's the first time them playing those characters. So you want to give them a good opportunity. Oh yeah.
Just to clarify, is it just the zombies or the cultists and necromancer also?
There is one zombie and one necromancer, depending on the size of the party. Did we say 4?
4 people level 1.
I think a zombie with more health than it is the monster. Okay, you're saying basic rules, can't do that. One zombie and one necromancer, I think.
Okay, interesting. So 1 zombie, 1 necromancer.
But you need the necromancer to be in a situation that the players kind of have to get through the zombie or have to think for a way to get past the zombie.
All right, interesting. Thanks to your tavern, like it so far. That's interesting. Let's wrap it up with, not wrap it up, but just close it out with Scott. What is your tavern, or not tavern, wow. What is your first, not tavern, it
doesn't mean anything, Jake.
Doesn't mean anything. Look, it's only like 7:45 for me and maybe 3:45 for you. I'm also just, it's been a long day. Scott, what is your first encounter?
All right. In most encounters, you definitely want multiple people that you're going up against. In most encounters, because that's how the action economy plays out. However, for boss fights and for first encounters, you want one enemy. You want one enemy that's cool and you're all going against, because your fantasy is going against those boss monsters. So why not introduce that to the party immediately, not with a boss monster, but with a singular enemy for them to fight that is cool. In my opinion, first combats of the campaign should kick off the story. They should be the inciting incident. They should foreshadow creature types to come. That's something that I agree with Jake on. And it should be something that begs questions. That is why I have gone with the Nothic, which is a hound with a beak and an enormous goddamn eye in the front, which can claw things, shoot radiant or shoot necrotic lasers from its own eye, and then force players to make a wisdom saving throw or have their secrets be extracted by the Nothic and drawn into the Nothic so that it can return them to its master, which is an excellent way to get players started right in the campaign role-playing. What are these secrets? Why does someone else want them? Who wants these secrets? Where the fuck did this aberration come from? And additionally, it builds in a self-balance thing that you can do, because that weird insight ability, the ability to drain secrets, that doesn't do any damage. So the Nothic, if it's kicking everybody's asses with the multi-attack, you then get this awesome story moment of seeing that they are, seeing that you are beaten to the ground. It starts prowling around and you begin to see the hypnotic pattern in its eyes, and you can make a wisdom saving throw. It's drawing the secrets out of you. There is a story threatening reason to scale down the difficulty of the encounter if needed. And
that is your time. Interesting. Nothics, very cool. Yeah, you don't see aberrations a whole lot in sort of classic fantasy, but I'm glad you brought that up. All right, so we have a cult fanatic and scout duo. You have one zombie with one necromancer, and as well as a Nothic. All right, I think with that being said, tell me why yours is the best and the others are not.
So I gotta say, Scott, your start is a Dark Souls start. Start with a big boy, and I think I would personally love that. Not gonna lie, but I think you don't want it to be
too intimidating. Like if it is really hard, which you probably need to make it powerful to stand on its own against 4 people, it might make the players weary to say sure. I think its mechanic of Stealing Secrets is awesome, and I think I totally agree that you want it to connect with later story. I think My Way is also a good way of doing that. Perhaps the necromancers had a note on him linking him to a cult, and this is the cult you've heard rumors about. Perhaps the zombie is the undead corpse of somebody one of the players knows, and this gives them a personal vendetta. Corey's one, that one is also pretty cool.
Yep.
I mean, again, it's pretty cool. I'd say I can't remember the specifics of it, but
The scout on the rooftop, and then the cult member coming towards the Duke for assassination.
Yeah.
okay. So that wouldn't. So it sounds like that.
My problem with that one is it is an awesome action-packed scene, and I think that it rewards creative problem solving and everything. I think it's an awesome second or third encounter. I think initially you want to. That's a great way to diversify your encounter set, so that your players know that it's not always going to be a hack and slash kind of thing. But I think that initially what most players want to do is they want to hop into a straight up combat, and they want to show their awesome abilities against somebody who's directly in front of them coming towards them. I really like your design philosophy, but I think that we should play into the fantasies that most players want for their first straight up combat.
That's a good point you do bring up, because Jake, you mentioned part of your thing with the zombies was that it does prevent some of that hack and slash, but sometimes hacking and slashing is fun. That's a good point.
Well, there would definitely an element of hack and slash. It's just they will also need to. I mean, hack and slash could definitely do it, but it would to kind of make them think as well. I think it's a combination.
I see what y'all are saying about the idea of the first combat or the first encounter being something, very, in something that your players can envision and, live out their dreams of showing off their moves and everything. But the thing with my encounter is that what better way to show your players and encourage them for, all of that creative problem solving. And the first time, I really want to emphasize is the first time they're ever acting as a party, as a team, right? You have to have all of these moving parts in this encounter. You can't just have this, one dimensional, like, hey, there's this thing, you need to destroy it. And once you do that, it's over. Like, I mean, of course, the elements of the story, as well as the Nothic stealing the secrets, I feel like those are very important, pieces of flavor that are part of the encounter. But having a dynamic encounter itself is also something that's very important, because, you need to have your party realize that, okay, this is something we have to figure out how to conquer, instead of just knowing this is what we need to do, right? You can have a player, approach the cult fanatic. You can have a player climb up to the building so that they can take out the scout. You can have players, helping people away. You can have all of these different possibilities for solving a problem that is really good for a first session, because it sets that tone for everything that is to come.
I think you brought up a really good point in there about envisioning the combat and having a cinematic thing, which is part of my issue with the Necromancer zombie fight. I think Necromancer zombie, the issue is you have 2 people. Human psychology, they aren't excited by 2 people. They're excited by one big tough person. They're excited by 3 people. They're excited by a horde. But it's not the fight really that you envision with one zombie, and besides that also a necromancer. Frankly, I'd add a third person into Corey's thing
as
well. There's an issue of just like that's not what you picture. It's not what you picture, and you're effectively separating it into battle tactical lines of like ranged versus close combat rather than spreading things.
I'm going to interject real quick. Jake, what are the specific the NPC stat block for? Like, I'm having trouble finding like necromancer. I thought I'm like, oh yeah, that's a thing. Is that actually a?
Not thinking
I
the
don't
bait.
think-
It's gonna be
Or
a
is it
cult classic.
cultist?
Necromancer is like a challenge rating 8 or something.
Yes, I think it's a different thing. Interesting. So it is.
Say it'll be. But cultists have no spells.
I think there's like a CR1 wizard or something.
Oh, there's an acolyte. Boom. Which have really
So
weird spells.
Yeah, okay. We can reskin an acolyte to be a necromancer for the sake of this. That's an interesting thing. Is that on a technicality, you may come in last in this debate, my friend.
But when why are we limited to the basic rules? I mean, everyone's going to have.
Because
look it up.
this is first campaign. You rush into prep. You're on roll 20. You're like, ah, shit. What can I throw together? Because I got my session in a few hours, and I forgot to actually think through this encounter. You gotta dig through those basic rules. What's free? What's available?
What about this? The necromancer is actually a fallen priest. Use the stat block of a priest, and then there's even more story. So, like, why is this priest now summoning undead zombies?
All right. I mean, I see you're trying to salvage it.
Yeah.
Ooh, a priest with a first level party, maybe a time.
Well,
with the zombie as well.
While we're talking about difficulty, there was a comment earlier about not making about the Nothic possibly being too tough as like an early Dark Souls style boss monster. A Nothic is only CR2. It has somewhere around 50 hit points. It only has about +4 to hit. It has scary looking and sounding abilities that are cinematic is the main thing. So it's something that you want to use, but like in late game, as soon as like level 3 or level 4 or level 5, you can just right through these things, which is why it's perfect for a very early level thing.
All right, you're gonna wrap this up here. Any last closing statements, final words on why your encounter is the best?
I don't know. Just say this. I think it's fine to have 2 people. I don't see any problem with people's perspectives of 2, especially if the focus is on the magic user, and that you see this zombie is almost an extension of him. You kill the magic user, the zombie also dies. Yeah, I'll just add that.
I will also say this. I agree, Jake, about the 2 people. But also, at level 1, there are only so many things your party can do. And so by adding those problems that give your player characters more things to do within the encounter inherently makes it more exciting and dynamic and fun, whether it's climbing the building, helping civilians, saving the Duke. There's so many things you can do when you add, environmental and, having to do with NPCs parts of the encounter as well, besides just, what monsters you need or what, enemies you need.
I agree in general, but not for the first encounter. I think for the first encounter, simple hack and slash is the way to go.
Yeah, interesting. 3 very different approaches. Actually, I'm surprised. I'm sorry. I would have gone with. I always like my personal favorite. I default to a lot is first night traveling through the forest. Oh shit, wolves! And wolves are just reskinned in some way. Last campaign,
Yes,
I'm like,
that's
ooh,
what I
they're
did.
like magical midnight looking wolves. I like it because it gives the player a chance to adopt or to make one their pet. Almost without fail, a player always wants a pet right away. And I'm like, sure. Roll nat 20 animal handling, which they often do, and boom, you got yourself a magical air quote wolf pet.
Make a goblin so they can adopt a goblin. Everyone who plays D&D wants to adopt a goblin.
So I'm almost sad no one realized how important pets are to the starting game.
But then it takes away the importance of the range of pet. Beastmaster, no.
It's shaped like a dog.
Nothics are not shaped like dogs.
Nothics,
Yeah, 4 legs.
Not every quadruped is just a weird dog. And also, the picture is very much like standing on its two back legs.
What? Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah, it's a little more humanoid looking than you think, my friend.
Oh, well, that's still awesome and cinematic. You got like an alien yeah, it still works.
All right, interesting. 3 different approaches. Love it. I will say, Quinn, you did get bonus points for the phrase "murder hobo wet dream" and how effortlessly integrated it was into your argument. So
Thank you.
okay. All right. So now for third question, which I know I said throw you guys a little out of loop, but I don't know, keep on your toes. But I think you should be fine. It's an interesting debate. Let's say I have a friend who is creating their first character for a new campaign, level 1. This is like their first time playing D&D or any TTRPG. And you know what? They're so excited. They are open to playing any race and class as long as available in the player's handbook, and will also kick ass in game. They want something fun, and it's their first time playing. That's what you know. What do you recommend? What race and class are you gonna recommend to my friend here? Jake, you are starting.
Oh, yeah, yay. What class and race was that?
Race
the
and
question?
class. Friends, brand new to D&D. Player's handbook, race class.
Level 1.
Yes.
What are the preferences of the players? Is this player, does he like spells, or does he just want something cool?
You know what? If it's in the player's handbook and it's fun to play in game,
Fine,
and fun is, you don't know what the definition of fun is either.
And they're a newbie.
Yep, brand new.
Okay, this one I'm not. Orc barbarian. You want you're maybe they're a gamer, maybe they're not. But DPS is fun. Clink clink big dice. Orcs, you get your strength, and you're a barbarian. I mean, when you think orc, you think barbarian. When you think barbarian, you think
half orc, right? Because it's player's handbook.
Oh yeah, half orc, of course.
Okay.
Same thing, kind of. Same. Okay, it's not the same thing, but kind of. But barbarians really cool. They aren't too complicated for a new player, but they still do a lot, and they do a lot of damage. The most probably at early levels, and it's just fun. It's fun. You just say, "I'm going to rage," things like that, and you just roll. Oh, reckless attack. Oh, roll twice. Oh, take 20 damage. I think that's fun. And I would help them make a orc barbarian. How much more time do I have?
You have a whole minute, but I think.
Oh my. Okay, what, another minute.
You don't have to talk longer if you don't want to.
I guess I would maybe make them. I would also say make be great weapon, of course, two-handed. I mean this. Okay, you know what? I don't need to go into this. You said race or class. I'm just gonna stick with orc barbarian.
Yes, and I believe feats maybe a little
first.
Well, I meant
just give him a great sword.
You use a big weapon for even more damage. Or you could dual wield. You can do that, right? I think you can.
You can't add your ability modifier to the second attack.
No, that's true. But rage bonus, you get it, right?
You get rage bonus, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, any works. If they want to be huya, it can be hoya. If they want to be hoya, they can be hoya. They can't be pew pew. They can't be pew pew or yee. But
I don't even know what that second one meant.
It's supposed to be spells.
I got it.
All right, Jake. So you're trying to tell my friend they should play a half orc barbarian. Interesting. Actually, Scott, what do you recommend?
I recommend that they play a paladin, and here is why. It is the simplest way to teach somebody everything about the game. You get an introduction to martial classes that's easy to do. Roll the dice, roll to hit. You get an introduction to spell casting that is easy to manage. Once you get Divine Smite, an early player will just be like, well, I'm just going to do that all the time. And you get used to the concept of spell slots while only really using that one option. You get lots of weird effect things to get used to, stuff that takes your bonus action, stuff that The channel divinity is cool. You get introduced to the concept of like short rest mechanics by the channel divinity. Lay on hands and all of the divine healing stuff will give them a great introduction to some of the more support elements of the game. You just learn Paladin is one of the most versatile solo classes because it can do a little bit of everything except stealth, basically. So you're missing out on one aspect of the game and you are doing it in like a fun way, fun, simple, easy to learn way for the new player. Paladins have a lot of passive buffs, which are very easy to keep track of, aura stuff. For race, I would recommend, I mean, normally I'd be basic, just be like variant human, get a feat, but I think feats are a little bit complicated for the player, so let's just get him something strong right out the gate. Just have him play a half elf, get 2 extra skills, get more racial bonuses, get advantage on charm stuff. Just have them, it's a nice, simple thing to play that's kind of aesthetic neutral. They can play whatever kind of paladin they want, and they are guaranteed. Paladin is one of the most multi-attribute dependent classes in the game. Half elf helps compensate for that. You feel like you're doing a lot as a paladin, and you are.
Yeah, it's about time to interesting paladin. So, okay, interesting at first level versus beyond, but all right. So we have half elf paladin. I like aesthetic neutral. That's my alignment. I'm aesthetic neutral. All right. And all right. Last but not least, Corey, what do you recommend my new friend play?
Here's what I recommend they play. I recommend they play a wood elf monk. Now you may be thinking, monk, that's not something you see a whole lot of new players play. Usually it's like a fighter or I don't know, rogue, wizard, I don't know, maybe not. But monk is actually a deceptively easy thing, especially at early levels, because you don't have to worry about weapons. You just use your hand-to-hand combat. You get enough damage with the martial arts that it's not super underpowered at first level. And really all a new player has to worry about when they're playing a monk is just how freaking cool they want to be, what concept they want to use. They can be a kung fu master, they can be a boxer, they can be any really just super cool brawler that they want to be. As far as using the wood elf, I feel like the bonuses that it offers are good for making the character a little bit stronger, as far as the dex bonus and the wisdom bonus, putting it in there so that the player, as long as they're okay with playing a wood elf, doesn't really have to worry about whether the scores are good or not in terms of their abilities. And honestly, I just think it's a really good thing to learn with monks as well, as far as their inherent abilities and using, expending certain points to use their abilities later down the line. It's a good mechanic that a few other D&D classes have that'll sort of, dip their toe in the water as they level up for things like sorcerer or any other class that sort of uses points in a similar system. But yeah, a lot of it just has to do with the ease of concept of just like, hey, you want to hit this thing, you hit it, roll the dice. And it's just a great introduction for someone who's never played D&D before.
Yeah, all right. That, I think, ends up. All right. So we have our half-orc barbarian, half-elf paladin, and wood elf monk. I'm my time, give me a couple minutes. Interesting points brought up already, but I'd like to hear you guys argue it out, try to, it's a really cool friend, my hypothetical friend. It's super cool. So like, if they pick your character, and it's like, that's like an honor. So I want to know, like, why should you really want your character concept picked? What's best, your experienced DMs, tell them whose characters they go with.
It does depend on your friend. I will say that.
They're
But
open to anything.
if they're open to anything, I'm going to say this. Elves, nah, they're not cool. They're not cool. You want big, orc, chonky, maybe. You want to deal a lot of damage. And I think learning is a good thing through Paladin, but I don't think that's necessary. I think Paladins are cool, but I think for a new player, I think barbarians are better for the new player just because they can, whacking people is just what they think, and it's more fun. I think the paladin has a lot of cool tricks, but I don't know if it's as cool
for a starting player. I don't think it's as cool doing all these religious hocus pocus, big orc, go her. And I mean, the same with the monk. I think the monk is even more less cool. But that's just my opinion. I think monks do punching, but I mean, they punch. Where's their big axe? Where's their big axe? So if this person likes DPS and likes big axe, barbarian orc.
All right, here's my counter argument. I have 2 points. First, and we're starting this at first level, so but we won't be at first level forever. We have to acknowledge the reality that things are coming on the horizon. And the thing about new players, they are not worried about DPS yet. That is something they learn to worry about. What they are worried about is I hit. I do big damage on a single hit. I think of a number of amount of damage that I did. Damage spikes, while not mechanically necessarily better than long-term damage, are way more fun. They are way more fun. And paladins are the best damage spikers in the game because they control exactly when it happens. It's never a wasted resource, and you're going to be doing an extra 2d8 damage at second level. That is enormous. That is enormous, and the player is going to really feel that. As for the monk, I have a counter argument against its simplicity. The trouble is, you mentioned not wielding weapons, but most monks use monk weapons, which will have a different damage die that will confuse the player. I do these D4 for my fists, but then during my main action, I use this with the versatile property for a D8, but it's a D6 if I hold it in one hand. And then I'm making an attack on my bonus action, but I don't quite understand what a bonus action is yet and why it's different from my main attack action. And at level 2, it starts referencing a bunch of preset actions in the game, like the dodge action, the disengage action, the dash action, that nobody really knows what to do with yet. It's good to learn these things, but I think you learn them better having them come up in natural play with any character rather than making them a core part of your class identity right at the first thing.
Yeah, I will interject. I want to say one thing with different damage die. I think for the most part, I've DM'd for a lot of new players, and I think a lot of time they have at least one or two weapons. So I think it's interesting to bring up the damage die because, for the most part, everyone has their big thing and then a dagger. So I think people are pretty used to having multiple damage die.
Also,
I appreciate the counter argument, but
I maintain that the different types of actions, when you're getting used to D&D, the most intimidating thing is the action economy and figuring out what you can do on your turn, and monks compound that problem.
I mean, if you have a DM that knows, the mechanics of a monk, you'd be like, well, you have your bonus action. Let me tell you what you can do with it. Or if the character's like, hey, what does a dodge mean? The DM can be like, oh, well, this is something you can do. And, within the first few sessions, this new player is already familiar with all of these mechanics of combat, which again, there are plenty of them to learn and, remember, but doing that early on is something that'll, make them a better player, even though, they just started.
I'll also say, on top of DPS, and this is, I mean, paladins are also good at this. They also want to be tanky. They want to be the guy taking all the hits and doing all the damage. Paladins are also good at this. I acknowledge that. Monks, not so much. I just think this is what the not everyone, but this is just the gamer mentality. Big damage. Paladins can divine smite. That is true, but really, yeah, that is true. They need to crit though to do that really huge damage.
An extra 2d8 is nothing to sneeze at. Not at those levels.
But that's only twice or two or three times, and then barbarians also get some pretty cool stuff. I don't know, tanky damage, boom.
I will say this about the half-orc barbarian chop. I want to do damage. I feel like it's good mechanically for a new character to just know this one thing and be really good at that one thing. But if you're going to be playing in a campaign with this player, that kind of one note, one dimensional, I am a barbarian, all I do is damage, can be kind of monotonous and maybe even a little bit boring if That's all you're doing in this new game that you're playing for the first time.
I just would like counter up with a real example. This wasn't a half orc. This is more a barbarian. I played about a DM for 100 hours for this person, and they were a herder barbarian. But that doesn't stop them from role playing out the situation. They had a very low intelligence. They role played that, and they role played this very impulsive character who would just run into stupid situations. And I think that's a role playing tool. And barbarians do get some cool stuff depending on your subclass that does more than just herder.
Yeah. Role playing. I mean, role playing. You can play it with any of these. I do agree with Corey's point though about options. Having DM'd for a lot of new players, especially before they're familiar with everything they can do, they just kind of want to do everything. I've had people who are like, they can do something like 30 plus damage if they do this one thing, or like something like 20 plus damage if they do this one thing on their action, but they'll routinely like stop doing that to run and go get distracted by another option, like picking up a gun that the guy just dropped and firing that, or like picking up like grabbing like a magic staff or something from the back of the room. New players, before they get locked into those, like knowing what the best mechanically option is, they want to try lots of different things, which is why I think Paladin and Monk giving like that level of like, there are lots of different things that you can do and they will be mechanically effective, rather than falling into the trap of like, okay, so you're going to spend your action picking up this thing. Okay, turn done.
All right, I think we'll then kind of lead into any last final statements. Actually, no, just final this round. I'll let any other final remarks after this. But yeah, closing out. Last reason, like why is Zeus the best, or the most? Why should you, my hypothetical friend, play this character?
The thing with paladins is you just can't get past that burst damage. It's so much fun to go Nova. It's not the best strategic play, but that's not what players are here for. They are here to expend all their resources and be a badass in that one round. That's a trouble that barbarians and monks come up with. They don't have many. All of their things are at will, which is fine. You can hit things a bunch of times for low damage, lots of extra shots. It's not as much fun. Consistent damage is not as much fun for new players as boom, I hit him, boom, radiant damage, explosion. I am the god of combat because I did something like 30 damage with this one hit.
I mean, yeah, but to do 30 damage, that is going to be a crit, right? But
oh yeah, you know what I mean, like 20 damage,
yeah.
more than.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. In terms of the options thing, there are subclasses of barbarian. Like, what about packs of wild magic? That's it looks like a blast. And every turn,
player's handbook.
I've only used Tanner's handbook. Okay, what about, isn't there like Beastmaster one or Totem, whatever?
Totem Warrior has a lot of customizability.
Yeah, Totem Warrior. So I think barbarians are highly customizable, and I think they can also half orcs specifically can go Nova if orcs have brutal criticals. And correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't there a barbarian subclass that means you crit on 19 at a later level? Yeah, so I mean, that's going to be huge, especially if you're using a two-handed weapon.
Well, there isn't one that makes it crit on a 19. At higher barbarian levels, you add another damage die.
Okay, so it's even more. But yeah, you're right. Okay, it doesn't crit on 19, but still.
Corey, last words?
Yeah, Amanda, I don't know this hypothetical friend of yours, but I feel like it'd be hard pressed if they didn't want their first foray into a super cool role-playing game to allow them to embody their favorite character from pop culture. You could play Goku, you could play Jason Bourne, okay? You could play any character from your favorite anime, any movie. Like it's such a versatile class for a new player to form a character around, because it's a very important thing in Dungeons and Dragons. And I will say, mechanically, of course, it is just one of those classes that really lets a new player sort of just thrive in learning combat, learning how it works. The crunchiness of D&D is one of the hardest obstacles to overcome. And granted, it is a new player. It's not impossible, especially with the support of Dungeon Master that will be able to, guide them through it as any good Dungeon Master would for a new player. I think Monk is a perfect class for a new player to play if a DM wants them to learn it and love it just like we do. But yeah, shout out Amanda's hypothetical friend.
All right.
Whoever they play, I hope they have fun.
All right. Yes, I think that wraps up our 3 rounds of debate. This is very interesting. That's some good.
Imagine if they played a
good-
Beastmaster Ranger. Amanda's hypothetical friends.
Also, can I say I love the franticness that this show gets as soon as we started a timer.
Dude,
I'm
yes.
thinking in the future, like 90 seconds. Y'all, for the most part, can do it in 90 seconds. I think it's more fun. And plus, saves time. Okay. So, interesting. Kind of doing my tallies. I'm just going to score this last round. As much as I want to be neutral, I was a little sorry, because I also think monks are really good first choice as someone who has played, like I said, played a lot of monks, also dealing with a lot of new players. I think the biggest thing is that as with a monk, pretty much everything you need is on the monk page. One thing that didn't come up in surprise is barbarians and monks don't need armor, and the armor table is so annoying to claw through.
One time.
Armor takes like 20 seconds. Oh, number, boom, done. Add it to a character sheet. Done.
Unarmored defense is so easy.
I have helped
I mean, I'm a
so
barbarian
many
with
people.
unarmored defense, and
You have starting equipment. It gives you the armor. You're like, what armor is this?
Trying to go through, I have helped so many new players, both characters back in high school, and just the tables are the worst. And sometimes being having to explain every single option is fun. By fun, I mean not fun.
There's only one they can afford with starting gold or with starting equipment. There's only one option at first.
They're actually told which one they have according to the character sheet.
I think for paladins, that's fair. For paladins, it has one option. It's just in general, all going through tables of things. Great time. But no, Scott, you did make some good arguments. I think the versatility, not versatility, like just the diversity of paladins and those options you have, that it is kind of a bit of everything.
Maybe go through how the scoring works again.
Yes. So the way we're doing it now, instead of just kind of assigning tallies, being a little like that, what I did is for each round, I did first, second, and third place for each round. First place is 10 points, second place is 7 points, third place is 3 points. I'm thinking maybe change the scaling a little bit. It's not always balanced the first time, but we'll see. But to help with that, I do give out bonus points for the things like, hey, that's a really good point. You made a good argument, counter argument, you said a fun thing.
There's a hobo wet dream.
A murder hobo. It wasn't the only thing that warranted bonus points. I will say.
First hashtag of D&Debates, hashtag murder hobo wet dream. Tweet it. We'll love to see it.
Yeah. Tweet
just call the episode "Murder Hobo Wet Dream." That pretty much summarizes it.
That'll get clicks.
Tweet at Corey_337 hashtag Murder Hobo Wet Dream, and just keep going at it.
Please.
Because he wants you to do it.
I want you to do it. Please do it.
Please do it. Please tweet Corey at Corey_337 on Twitter. Hashtag Murder Hobo Wet Dream. Anyways, so I actually didn't tally up the points yet, so I'm doing this as we're going along. All right, round one we had. Oh my God, what was it? All right, round one was the where do we start setting wise. Honestly, just based on argument wise, Corey, to me, you won that. You got first place. I think the oh no, my notes are so weird. I think the kind of Vignettes, Crossroads, and Disaster Strikes, you put it, was a really interesting way. You had some great arguments for it. there weren't a lot of counter arguments for it, and the fact that you're like, hey, I ran this for new players in the summer and it worked really well, really helped your argument. Jake, I gave you second place. I think your Tavern start was, your argument was really good. Yeah, so some counter arguments, but overall not bad. Scott, unfortunately, as much as cool as it is, I think that it does with the sort of prophetic dream start. I guess the idea of something in a situation is good, but the dream, it does, they set the scene for like one player and one player only. And I like it, but unfortunately it just didn't stack up.
It's niche.
Yeah.
I think it'd be really cool, and I'd enjoy that.
I said during the debate, I was like, I want to play Corey's.
Yeah, that's also what gave Corey.
Hey, let's get together, play D&D sometime. I'll DM. My treat.
But yeah.
No. But I actually did like. Sorry, I was just gonna say
sorry.
I did like the idea of the prophetic dream. It's something I never thought of before, but I've always enjoyed the idea of sort of describing images for the characters without them like being face to face with it. You know, just kind of like planting this like abstract sort of vision of some theme within the campaign that isn't just like, you see this is, you hear this. You know, I really like that a lot.
Thank you.
All right, next round with the starting encounter.
I think we know who's last.
Yeah, I did. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. Look, it was a valiant effort, and I do get it. I think I see the logic with the zombie. I just with the necromancer sort of priest mix up. Also, the priest would be pretty rough for a group of first party players looking at this.
I mean, yeah, it was my fault. I mean, it would have been a homebrewed monster, to be honest. But that's a debate for a different. That's a debate for a different time. Yeah, I would take the L on that.
All right, and then second was actually Corey. Although even with the bonus points, I do. I don't know. I think it's a good start for sure. I think in a lot of things it'll work, but I think like that's a good like solid starting. But I think Scott, you brought up with the Nothic. I mean, I think it's a really interesting, like really good first monster. I do agree that first battle, as much as a dynamic thing is interesting, oftentimes you just like, hey, first thing you want to show off your abilities. You chose the special things for a reason. And also it's just a cool enemy not used very often. And yeah, that's why I put the Nothic at number 1. Then finally, with actually round 3, I won't say who won because that will spoil points probably.
Corey, would you actually like do your vignettes thing, the vignettes and story start thing? Because I'll play.
Literally every campaign.
Do it.
That's my startup choice.
Do it. Starting tomorrow, we're playing.
What?
You better come up with campaign quick.
I'm calling your bluff, Jake. Jake. I'm free tomorrow.
All right.
No, I'm not. I'm bluffing. I'm not calling your bluff.
It's a bit like the one I did, right? Because everyone came from a different region.
Yeah, I guess with yours though, like it would have been showing a scene of each character by themselves, like before going to the tavern.
I see.
But pretty much the same concept of just like all the characters meeting up, but like starting with the process of that happening.
For my next long-term home game, I'm gonna do like every person gets a one shot beforehand. I think that'll be fun.
That's a good one too.
That's the best.
That. Yeah.
That's actually.
It's the best.
Yeah.
But
is it
logistically,
practical?
it's hard.
No. The idea for me of planning out like 4 unique one-shots.
Yeah, especially
some of them. They're going to be 3. I have 5 players. I'll have like 2 of them paired off, and then.
Okay. All right. Do you wanna hear who won this? Do you want a drum roll? Do you want?
I have an idea who won. I got it right last time. Let's see if I get it right this time.
I guess to the winner of the this episode of D&Debates, the beginning of the campaign episode, is Corey. Took the lead here. It wasn't that close of a call, honestly. It was 29-21 to 16. in terms of point wise. But yeah, Corey, you're just, I guess, really good at starting the game.
Good at starting, bad at finishing. Just kidding. Play my games. Play my games.
What was the rank? What was the rank? What was the ranking on the third question?
Oh, ranking of the third. I gave Corey first. I actually kind of tied. I did 6 points each instead of the, like 7 or 3 for both you, Jake, and Scott, because I felt like the way I saw it, remember like the scale you had on like one end of like being simple and easy enough is like the barbarian, then the other end is paladin, where you have I think a little too much to choose from, and then nice in the middle is the monk. So that's why it's how I kind of saw it and how it was put out there. So yeah, I'm surprised no one said cleric, because you teach new players to play support and healers.
Absolutely not. That is the last character I would recommend them play first.
My
You don't.
first
They
pick
want to
was
be a
cleric.
healer. They're just going to leave D&D. No, if you're still watching, do not start playing characters.
Play if you're for some reason a new player or person wants to play for the first time and listening to a weird D&D discussion podcast, play a cleric, play a healer, do it. Everyone will be so thankful. You're the most
Absolutely.
important person in the party. Scott, you can yell over me. I don't care. It's
Public service announcement. Not like clerics are fucking awesome, even if they don't heal all the time.
yes. You also get inflict wounds, which is
You could.
an overpowered spell.
Full casting is kind of hard for first time players.
Easier than wizard. So
I suppose my first build was really weird because it was a melee spellcaster, Hexblade Warlock.
Oh, Hexblades are fun.
Yeah, I only got to level 3 though. Rip.
Let's see. To wrap it up, I don't know. You know what? So any DMs out there, you want to have a great beginning session, have it start with vignettes of what your players are up to, and then bring them all together with some inciting incident, possibly a Nothic fight. And then if you have any new players who want to play, recommend them a Wood Elf Monk, and kind of go from there. Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of D&Debates. Make sure to, like, share, subscribe. If you're listening to something on the internet, you kind of know what the drill is. Yeah, and I guess stay tuned for the next episode. And
comment your beginnings.
Yeah.
Comment your encounters. How would you start a campaign? What would you recommend for a character build for new players? We'd love to hear it. Who do you think should have won? Thank you for listening, though. Really appreciate it.
We know who's been mistreated here, so comment section represent.
Also
comments get it for Jake. Hashtag go to bed, Jake.
Hashtag go to bed, Jake.
Hashtag 4:33 a.m. today.
Oh my god, I'm so sorry.
Oh, Jake. Jake, we have to do one on your time.
No.
Time. Like, you moderate the one on your time, so we're all just fucked.
Thank you guys for listening. Chat more. I'm about to go into conversation mode. I want to chat.
I'm cutting out nothing.
Yeah, we keep saying we're gonna cut shit out.
All right.
Bye.
Take care.